Hello, this is Matthew Jackson, and welcome to part two of my series on the church and the culture war. And the video that really got this whole thing started off was a video I did a few weeks ago called The Sign of a Healthy Church. And in that video, I put forth the notion that the sign of a healthy church is also how well they perceive and are engaged in the culture war. So normally when you look at the sign of a healthy church, you look for the normal indicators such as positive church growth, how many people are getting baptized and discipled and stuff like that, which is a good thing too, don't get me wrong, but also, how the culture war is perceived and engaged, I think, is another indicator. Now, from that video that I did, a viewer responded and asked me what the biblical basis was for a church or a Christian being involved in the culture war. And of course, I addressed that issue in part one of the church and culture war. Today, I want to talk to you about another viewer who responded to the sign of a healthy church. When this viewer wrote, "There is no healthy church or churches. There is only healthy individuals." I disagree with Matthew that a healthy person is one that is engaged in cultural warfare. We are to go in all the world and preach the gospel and to make disciples. If you want to picket abortion clinics or whatever, that is secondary to the first. I commend Matthew for doing what he has done, but it is not for everyone. This may not apply to his video, but a lot of folks see the spreading of the gospel to mean doing things other than preaching the word. Missions trips to help kids, build houses in Mexico, doing service projects, perhaps protesting against abortion. But this is not spreading the gospel. They are good things and appreciative to those on the other end and show Christian care, but in themselves is not spreading the gospel of salvation. I say do both. So that was some feedback from one viewer, another viewer that I had. Now, let me go ahead and break this down and respond to this gentleman's response. First of all, I grew up in a denomination where, a lot of your mainline denominational churches like Lutherans, Episcopals, and Methodists and whatnot, they tend to emphasize more the social gospel. Social gospel meaning they'll feed them, put clothes on their backs, but not really do a whole lot on the evangelistic side in terms of presenting the gospel. And that's the term, that's the phrase that's been used to characterize that as the social gospel. And a lot of evangelicals tend to look down upon that because they're not doing enough to present the gospel and encouraging them to become Christians. And so I can sort of see that point. I think that's kind of the point this gentleman might be making. Now, I don't see it as so much doing good works on one hand and then preaching the gospel on the other. I see more of an integrated approach, more of a synthesis. And you take Jesus, for example. He did miracles, fed the 5,000 people, and he healed the sick and healed the blind and turned the water into wine, yada, yada, yada. He did all those things. Well, in addition to those things, as he was doing these things, he also preached the gospel. He also told parables. He also used those events as teaching opportunities. So if you read the gospel and the way Jesus did it, it was really more intermeshed. So I don't see it as a one or the other. But yeah, I think in his last statement here, he says do both. Yeah, I would agree. At some point, you do have to present the gospel in one way, shape, or form. Now, having said that, let me connect this to picketing abortion mills or protesting at abortion mills, whatever you want to call it. Now, this is a true story, what I'm about to tell you. Back in February of 1985, I had been a pro-life activist for 3 months, really seriously going out there every Saturday. And I was picketing an abortion mill with my picket sign, walking back and forth up and down the sidewalk, like picketers do. And my 15-year-old sister then, she was 15 at that time, was with me. And there was this one little lady named Amaryllis. She was a Hispanic lady from Guatemala. My sister intercepted her, tried to communicate to her, found out that she couldn't speak English, so my sister beckoned me over to go talk to her, because I knew a little bit of Spanish. The bottom line, and it was kind of an interesting situation, because here I was holding a picket sign, so I actually had to put the picket sign down. I put the sign down on the grass, okay, so I could talk to this lady, because here I am, a 6'6" white guy towering over a Hispanic woman that's barely 5 feet tall. So anyway, I had to talk. I tried talking to her, and with what little Spanish I knew. Bottom line is, I was able to convince this lady to go with me to the Crisis Pregnancy Center. We took her to the Crisis Pregnancy Center, where she could get help. I told her if she went with us there, we could help her. And fortunately, at the Crisis Pregnancy Center, we had a counselor there by the name of Carmen, who was Hispanic and was fluent in Spanish. And obviously that was a big relief to me, because that eliminated the language barrier. She gave her the presentation that all CPCs give incoming clients at CPCs, and she subsequently decided not to have an abortion. The next thing you know, she calls her husband at her work, says, I'm not going through with the abortion. The husband was irate that she didn't go through with the abortion, so the CPC counselor actually went and picked up her husband, brought him back to the CPC, showed him the same presentation that she showed his wife. And when he saw the presentation, he was reduced to tears, because he didn't know he had no concept of what an unborn child looked like at that stage of development. And so anyway, they kept the baby. The people in my entourage, there was about 3 or 4 other people. We all helped them out. We all brought diapers, baby stuff, food, anything we could do to help supplement and augment his income. Because one of the reasons he wanted to have the abortion was because they were kind of poor, didn't have a lot of money. So, it was an economic issue, so we helped him out in that way. Also, one of the couples that the church they were attending had a Spanish group within the church, and they had Spanish translators for the services that they did. So they picked him up and took him to church every Sunday. Anyway, fast forward to August 28th, 1985. This little guy was born. His name is Elias. Okay, this is 30 years ago. Okay, because it's 2015 now. So this is about 30 years ago. And Elias was born, and I went to the hospital in the neonatal section and took a picture. And so this is the baby that we were able to save. I started out picketing, okay, but we ended up, in the long run, preaching the gospel, because not only did we save this little baby's life, but we also led an entire family to Christ. Here's the picture of the family. They had an older son who was already born. His name is Juanito here. You can see him right here. And that's the dad, Carlos, and then the mom, Amaryllis, and then, of course, the little baby we saved. So I would say that protesting and picketing at an abortion mill is probably a lot more preaching the gospel than you might think. It's not the same as, let's say, picketing if you're with a labor union and you're picketing an establishment because of the man, is not paying you enough money, is treating you unfairly, or you're picketing a government agency because you're unhappy with the way what their policies are, something like that. When you go to an abortion mill, you're not picketing for yourself. You're there to bear witness of the humanity of the unborn that you're representing, and you're trying to reach out to the unwed mothers there. So that's really more the focus. It's not quite the same as your other kinds of protests and pickets. So just you being there at the abortion mill has its redeeming spiritual value, even if you don't quote unquote preach the gospel. The fact that you're standing up for an injustice, that has its own spiritual value in and of itself. So that's basically all I wanted to talk to you about today. Thank you for watching, and until next time, ciao.